Hi, my name is David Coran.
My name is Steve Gutierrez. Welcome. Today is November 30th, and you're watching the third broadcast of the Crowdfunding News TV Crowdfunding Daily News.
We are crowdfunding guys.
We are crowdfunding guys.
And we are very passionate regarding crowdfunding in all forms and flavors.
Correct. I'll begin today, as I do each of our broadcasts, with some of the top 5 crowdfunding news items that we found over the last day or so. One of the first issues that I want to share with you is there's a great deal of crowdfunding activity here in North America, and I've got the first two stories out of the block today are from our neighbors to the north. In Canada, the legislation for crowdfunding and the setting of those rules and regulations is being managed in a much different way than here in the U.S., as we are with the Securities and Exchange Commission. It seems that the Canadian government has formed an alliance with a group called Alliance iCanada and Invest Crowdfund Canada, and they have built a collaboration of national momentum leaders and what are called provincial leaders, much like our states. These folks are focused on the promotion of capitalism, and their mission statement is to be leaders who are now volunteering to creatively support the legislative change to legalize investment-based crowdfunding and bring Canada forward as its support for the startups in their community. Maybe we can learn something from our neighbors in Canada. Again, another Canadian story, our second item, is about how the province of Ontario, was examining the ways to loosen those rules. Again, they are seeking to champion the possibilities that crowdfunding offers. And according to the sources of a gentleman by the name of Mr. McGinty, who recently noted that the Ontario Securities Commission is contemplating a crowdfunding exemption to their Securities Act, much like we're dealing with H.R. 3606 here in the United States. This effort seems to be making, like I said, an effort much like ours, and it is getting those new defined rules and guidelines are being implemented. It does seem a little, or maybe a lot of encouragement is needed from our House and our Senate and our business leaders to help move this process forward and make some progress, because we could lose another piece of our capitalism to outsourcing. Our third article of the day: WEFUNDER has raised $530,000 through its own crowdfunding initiative. In the U.S., the creative ones are working around the slow and tedious legislative processes here and are bypassing some of its effects. This complicated and very closely managed process of equity funding utilizes some of the blue sky state securities laws that permit small numbers of individuals, uncredited investors, to pitch their cash in for a return of a bit of equity in a business. This is more the exception than the rule, where earlier this year the Jobs Act will permit crowdfunding for the public at large. These blue sky state securities laws, unique to each of our states, are permitting it in selected and targeted areas. The U.S.'s version of crowdfunding, the Jobs Act, still needs to be hammered out, the final rules, by our SEC. Now, over the past couple of years, there have been some 300 to 500 crowdfunding websites that have all sprouted up and are now offering advice, information, services, and a variety of related capabilities in support of the North American crowdfunding movement. A very interesting guide and article I found, brought to us by the North Coast Journal, noted in our website. This journal recently published a very concise listing of the top 3 to 4 crowdfunding portals, and as they ranked in traffic by Alexa, the internet ranking mechanism, somewhat like Nielsen TV ratings. They overviewed the areas of crowdfunding by business causes, the business verticals, some of the fees, costs, and requirements to achieve the actual pledged funds. And in some cases, they're noting that they take as much as 10% off the top, and others hold the entire amount of the goal until it's achieved or some portion thereof is distributed to those that are creating the funding. This startup and entrepreneur environment, they're seeking to bring crowdfunding mechanisms to help fund their innovative idea and bring it to market. A lot of this information can be searched throughout our website here and cataloged and organized at Crowdfunding Planning, and we hope that this is an additional element of information for you in your knowledge and quest for knowledge about crowdfunding. Our last article is a very interesting entity. It's brought to us by a company here locally in Southern California, and one of the things that they focused on is how does crowdfunding build a better bottle cutter in this case. But what it really focuses on is how does crowdfunding utilize the research that can make your crowdfunding effort better. It's being raised in the information technology age for the Here it is my mistake, excuse me. Kanjahu, the founder, Patrick Lowe, discusses how crowdfunding helped him not only launch his product, but confirmed the market in doing so. The article highlights the absolute need to understand and test your market's potential prior to the crowdfunding, Patrick says. The main reason for turning to the crowd not necessarily was to get the money, but was to prove the idea that his business concept was commercially viable. Now, with a focus on using extensive, inexpensive, and powerful internet-based analytical tools, many of which are in the public domain and reachable today for all of the business and innovators and inventors that are out there looking for funding, they can take the whole subject of their business concept, their marketplace, and apply cloud-based analytics to help them unearth the hidden sort of building blocks to the success of their crowdfunding effort and management. More of this topic will be covered in future investigative reports and analyses that we're doing, and this information can be found on our website, crowdfundingplanning.com, as well as, even if you want to search generically what is crowdfunding, you'll find us and you'll find the information. So now that's part of the crowd. David, back to you with our guest of the day.
Thank you. This is my favorite part. Actually, I get an opportunity to talk with our guest. Today we got Brian Jansen.
Close, David.
Correct. Sorry. Brian has been one of our supporters and part of the crowdfunding mentors. Has helped us greatly on business setup for a few of our crowdfunding ventures. And we asked him today to come in. Basically, I would like you to introduce yourself. Let us know your organization and how do you get engaged with startups. That's number one. How do you see the crowdfunding? And specifically, what is the most important message that you want people to know when it comes to crowdfunding? Because I know you attend all the seminars, you manage some of the seminars, and some of the messages that are coming up. First, let's talk about introduction.
Well, thanks, David. I'm Brian Jennison. I'm a business and securities attorney based in Orange County. I've been in the securities and private placement industry for about 25 years. I've handled everything from small private placements for entrepreneurs and startups to actually taking companies public on the OTC bulletin board. So I'm well versed in what the traditional forms were for the crowdfunding platform, but I'm excited what crowdfunding has to offer that some of the other opportunities do not offer. And one of them is releasing what Steve was talking about, some of the blue sky regulations and securities regulations as it comes to people going out and raising money. Before I get to that, I want to talk about some fundamentals for crowdfunding that are really important today. First, let me give you an update to what's happening. We now have two separate forms of crowdfunding, as you know, David. One is the donation reward side, which is perfectly legitimate and legal in the United States and has been an extreme success, raising billions of dollars, both here in the United States and overseas. And now we have the equity crowdfunding, which means people will actually get a piece of the company's ownership, which is going to become effective in the first quarter of next year. The Securities and Exchange Commission is supposed to come out with the new rules early in January about how people can go out and raise money. Obviously, their concern for investors is eliminating to the best extent possible potentially fraudulent companies that are out there raising money from innocent investors, and so that's what they want to try to prevent. That's been their course of action so far. But I think it's really important, while we're waiting for the final rules to come through, to talk about some really basic things that every both investor and company should be aware of what's happening in the crowdfunding marketplace.
You were mentioning, as you do your conferences and seminars, a lot of attendees, they just think of crowdfunding equity base. And what is that? Why people, they really do not focus on what is making money right now?
Yeah, well, I think that's because it's new, David. It's a new concept to go and raise money based upon delivering a product in exchange for investment. It's a new format. I don't think people are well versed in it. The traditional formats have always been, I will give you a piece of the company or a return on your investment or a loan or something in exchange for equity. The new donation reward model is more of, we can actually begin creating prototypes, creating product, and giving those in exchange for money as opposed to equity.
Now I'm going to ask you the tough question. I get these comments from our audience a lot that right now, if I have a $2,000 or $200, I can easily go to a 7-Eleven and buy a lottery in California or anywhere in the United States. Also, I can get the same amount of money and go to any casinos, and nobody is going to question me. Why am I going to make that so-called investment or so maybe gambling? Why this question comes up when I want to get the same amount of money and do a crowdfunding equity base? I would like to take a chance and go there and make the investment. And sometimes this investment might be against companies such as Facebook. And if it's a success, it's my gain. And if it's not, buyer beware. Why do you think that people are still kind of like hesitant regarding crowdfunding equity base, and they're afraid that some bad thing happens?
Are you talking about from the investor point of view or from the company? Well, I think the investors are legitimately concerned about it, because prior to this idea of using the digital world and the crowdsourcing world for raising money, there was no place for those kinds of investors with small amounts of money to invest to go. Traditionally, in the private placement market and even in the public market, you had to have be an accredited investor in some circumstances, but even unaccredited investors were limited in the number that you could do, that you could offer to. So people were very reluctant to, number one, include unaccredited types of investors. That means people with a lower net worth. And so this is the first time that there is a potential resource for going out and actually raising smaller amounts of money from people. And that's why I think the rules are going to be so dramatically focused on preventing fraud. So I think that from an investor's point of view, that, you know, based upon what we're seeing coming down in the preliminary basis from the Securities and Exchange Commission and their consultants, that they're going to have some great capabilities of doing due diligence. There are actually companies that will be doing due diligence on behalf of the company, so that an investor can invest $100 and know that, number one, the owners of the company are real, the company is real, it has a real product, and so on and so forth. So that's why it's so important for these rules to be well written, so that they do protect investors from fraud.
Let me understand you. Yeah, you're saying that the rules right now governing building gambling houses or rules governing the lottery are so solid that it really helps people that they make those type of investment or gambling to stay out of harm. And you're saying that this, not the same, but the same level of protection is being devised to keep investors safe.
Right. To the extent possible. I mean, if you're going to invest $100 and you don't have that $20,000 or $30,000 to do due diligence on a $5 million investment.
Absolutely.
So what they're doing is trying to create a mechanism where smaller investors can feel relatively comfortable. The risk, they want the risk to be in whether or not the company is going to be successful and not in whether or not the company is a real company.
Beautiful. Now, another popular question that we receive is, we got people that they are going to be what we call it crowdfunding investors, and also they're going to be running their own crowdfunding campaign, and naturally they got partners, they got their own operations, and they ask us what type of NDA, what type of contracts, should be a corporation, should we have a partnership agreement. I know you get engaged a lot with this. Give us some advice. Let us know what is the best practices as we get engaged internally before we do crowdfunding, to make sure that the entity is solid. And I understand that by doing so, you're also going to have some tax strategy regarding are you a corporation or an individual when you receive the money from crowdfunding. Please.
Well, I think it's really important to understand that even though you may be raising money from the crowd on a digital basis, the fundamentals of crowdfunding are the same for that, or for going out and raising money in a traditional format. If you're going to raise $5 million, you have to have the bottom of that pyramid solid and structured. So I would say it's very important to surround yourself with a good team of people. The first person I would involve would be an attorney knowledgeable about how to structure your organization. Number two, once you do that, make sure you have agreements within the organization, especially if you have different partners and owners, so that they can understand what happens in the event of bringing investors in, what kind of structure you're going to give to the investors, and so on and so forth. So having that kind of thing structured up front is very, very essential, because you don't want to get in a situation where you may have raised money under crowdfunding but don't have enough capital available to go out and raise money on a second round of financing. So pre-planning is absolutely essential. The other thing that's really important, that's covered on my website, and that's Brian, B-R-Y-A-N, at Gianesin, G-I-A-N-E-S-I-N, law.com, are the other fundamental mistakes that business owners make. And it's true in the traditional format, and it's also true in the crowdfunding format. So if you go to my website, you can download for free the 7 huge mistakes business owners make, and it kind of covers all those elements that are essential. But what I will say is that you need to definitely have a business attorney involved. You definitely need a non-disclosure, non-compete agreement with people involved in the organization. And if you have proprietary products, it's very important to make sure that you have trade name, trademark protection in advance of releasing that information to the public. The next person would obviously be the CPA tax person, because there are taxable events that occur with regard to whether you're raising money on the equity side or whether you're raising money on the donation reward side. And so it's going to be very important to have that kind of a team around you. And of course, one of the most critical elements is your organization, crowdfundingplanning.com. Unless you have a standard to go forth with best practices, no matter how hard you try, no matter how wonderful your concept is, as you told me 100 times, and I'm a believer now, you have to have the crowd, right, Steve? In advance. Yeah. Without the crowd, you have nothing. You can have the greatest product in the world, the greatest idea in the world, but without the crowd, it's nothing. So it's essential to develop the crowd long before you ever decide to do crowdfunding, either on the equity side or on the donation reward side.
Thank you.
I got a question that I just want to add in addition. Recently, we've had an announcement that the chair of the SEC will be stepping down. Last one of our sessions, we covered that transition. Could you bring some insight from your perspective and understand the SEC probably more closely than any of us, how that might impact the delivery of the final rules and regulations?
Well, I'm hoping it doesn't delay that.
We're all hoping that, yes.
I don't know the answer. I'm not on the inside, but it is probable that the rules, since they have not been dribbled out, will probably be delayed for a little while the new chair comes in and makes some decisions. That's why I'm asking people to, if you have an opportunity to, number one, begin planning now, do that. Believe me, when it hits, it's going to be very fast and furious, and you're going to want to be prepared. So make sure you have your fundamental structure in place. But the other concept is, if you already have a product, or you already have something that's a tangible thing that's not equity that you can offer, it may be a wise idea to go over to the donation reward side that's already available and start your progress there, and to kind of see how that goes, because it is possible. I would say in 70% of the circumstances, you don't need to necessarily offer equity if you have a product or an idea or a prototype of something tangible that you can offer in return, a license or something like that. You may not need equity, so it might be an opportunity for you to go out now before everything gets saturated with new companies.
Possibly, you're right.
I just want to mention, as Brian mentioned earlier, as we were building our team, not only help us with our own crowdfunding, but also be able to offer some of the services to the folks that they call us. We did our due diligence, and we put together a winning team with crowdfunding experience that you can find in crowdfundingmentors.com, and just go there, you click the so-called the index or mentor directories, and you can get more information about Brian and his expertise and some of the other so-called experts that we have. In this case would be the IP attorneys or the accountant and cloud maker, the crowd makers, and more. Let me thank you very much for giving us your time. We're going to ask you to come and help us more often in some of this broadcast. Experience is a main help to our organization. And we know, as you mentioned, team is it. We have to have a team to go to crowdfunding. And each one is in our expertise. Let me thank you one more time.
My pleasure.
Pleasure.
My pleasure working with you.
Seeing you again.
Correct. I hope you stay for the rest of this, because the next session actually is very, very entertaining and very interesting. I'm going to go ahead and in this section, basically what we do a screen share with you. And let me make sure that yes, it's right here. And we review 3 crowdfunding campaign. I gotta do a disclaimer here. We invested on this one. Basically, it's called Illumini, the world's most intelligent light bulbs. And what they have done is amazing. You get this light bulbs, you put it inside the regular socket in your house, and then through your cell phone or your through PC, you can program not only the lighting, the color, what time is turned off and turned on, put a clock on it, do a lot with the Bluetooth. And as we studied this carefully, and we noticed that they had 2 catchphrases, one called "a light like no other." We love this catchphrase. And the other one, actually, they have TM, that's called "light your life." Live your light. My apology. Again, this is an Indiegogo campaign. The short pitch is bright and energy-efficient LED light bulbs you control wirelessly via mobile app, powered by Bluetooth and LED technology. As you go to our blog, you can get the Indiegogo URL back there that you're interested. You can click on and go in. They're attempting to raise 100,000, and 34 days left as of today. We love the idea and the technology, and we believe this is going to be really a big winner. A campaign has a very good video, and video covers all the bases, feelings, what it is, green technology, saving, fun, security, and I cannot say enough about the video. Highly recommended to the entrepreneurs to watch this thing. Good perks, we counted only 5 awards, but the perks are easy to understand. And we wanted good luck, and make sure we wish them luck and success. Again, I would like to go up and make sure that you guys see that 35 days is left, and at this time they have raised $4,214. The next campaign is it's kind of we don't regularly cover this type of campaign, but it's a political campaign. They're trying to raise 150,000 to create environment that Palestinian and Israelis, youngs and students, they can get together, do things that we always do in the United States. We do shop, we go see movies, we play games, and so on and so forth, hoping to actually develop the environment that allows the next generation of the people in that area, they can coexist. overall campaign has been launched by Ultimate Peace. It is an Indiegogo. Campaign short pitch is help grow this groundbreaking program that enables young Arab, Jews, and Palestinians to build a brighter future together. Again, they want to raise 150,000. 43 days is left. We love the idea. We know politicians, governments, and religion all have failed, and crowdfunding and youth may be the solution to create the leaders of the future that they can bring peace to this region. Campaign has a good video. Video covers all the bases again, and this is a donation base. This is not an award base, and we call actually somewhere about 8 donations. And good luck, guys, and we help you. We help that you be a success. We are going to follow up. The last one, and by the way, this is their logo, and we put the logo here to just make you guys see. The next campaign, again, I gotta confess, I made the investment. I saw this when they brought it to us, and I went to my partner and says we want it, and I'm very sure Brian and other folks right after this are going to make investment. What it is, it's called a stick and find. It's about something as big as a quarter that you can stick to your sneakers, to your cell phone, to your car door, whatever. And basically, your Bluetooth device will tell you where it is. In case if you connect it to your kids and kids is in a playground and it gets far away from you, say somewhere about 12, 13, whatever footage that you set, is going to beep and tell you that the object is getting far away from you. The campaign actually called Stick and Find, a Bluetooth-powered ultra-small location finder. And what I liked about it, once you put a battery in that gadget, it lasts about 1 year. And that's the beauty of it. Again, the campaign is a Kickstarter campaign. It's in Florida, and they are trying to raise $70,000. As of today, still there are 45 days left. We decided to go to the campaign that it sells 10 stickers, and this stickers actually is going to be shared with our crowdfunding mentors internally to see how it works. Campaign has a good video that it covers all the feelings, the green technology, saving, security, and so on and so forth. And in one of the sections, they show that they put these so-called sensors anywhere that is kind of important, especially cell phones that sometimes they have a habit of walking out, and you can control it. Then again, I want to make sure that we know that we saw 4 awards there. Very, very simple. I really like to emphasize to our crowdfunding fundraisers that they take a look at and they make their rewards kind of simple and also not 20, 30 of them. 4 to 5 would be fine. The next section is, let me go ahead. Steve?
Well, pick up a little bit of the part where we cover a few of the existing or interesting crowdfunding conferences and or educational events. What I did was I found a number of the articles I covered earlier that focused in on building an understanding of the marketplace and an understanding of your potential crowd in order to be successful in building your crowdfunding campaign. So I took another twist to that, and the first item I wanted to cover is in the cloud where data can be stored and this analytic process can be reached for us, the average consumer or a business entrepreneur that's looking to figure out, okay, I got this great idea. How am I going to bring it to market? Where is my market? Who are they? How do I reach them on the internet? How do I reach them in the electronic mechanisms that we have at our fingertips? This is a very good article. Is the cloud ready for the data warehouse? I'd like to suggest to you to take a look at this and see if this information can, well, I know much of this information in the area of analytics and building a private cloud model for you to figure out your customer is going to be very worthwhile to the small entrepreneur. It has some additional information about using some of the free databases, some of which are even provided by our government free of charge to you. And then the second article in this area is another version of this that I thought was equally important, and that is what is the what is the use of another term in the area of analytics called big data. Now, big data is, don't let it scare you, and don't even let the fact that this information comes from something called computer world, especially for us non-computer oriented businesses. The thing is that this area, as identified by some of the best researchers, let me grab this here, and let me just highlight them. The Gartner Group is one of the most advanced research entities that looks at things in business and in industry, both in the commercial marketplace, the retail, and the consumer marketplace. What are the trends and what are the informations that we can take advantage of? And there's a whole understanding of the use of this business intelligence data that is becoming more and more important for everyday business. And I want to recommend, as we've had in some of the earlier articles of crowdfunding attempts, do your homework, do your research, understand your marketplace, and from that you can then build your cloud and move to another area of our subject is, what is the quote of the day?
Correct. Before I go to the quote of the day, in our mentor series, we usually say, the crowd lives on
the cloud.
The cloud. This means if you want to really touch your crowd, you have to have a mechanism to live in the cloud. Now, the word of the day. As usual, I mentioned these things. We have collected this, and this we get actually a recommendation from our viewers. Today's the code is ideas are dime a dozen. People who implements them are priceless. And that's truly because, you know, a lot of us, we can have ideas or so. I just want to make sure another point here. We live in a very, very specific time, and what I'm mentioning is because of the technologies available to us, we can do wonderful stuff. Therefore, for people who are passionate, they want to accomplish and build their idea, there's no more excuses. These are wonderful times. You got the cloud, you got the crowd, you have the crowdfunding, and the following story really talks about it. One of the areas that I have been very adamant about it is crowdsourcing. And many people really do not know what crowdsourcing is. I suggest that they go to YouTube and take a look at what crowdsourcing. And this following story is about a very creative woman in Los Angeles by name of Shelton Wilder. And she has an organization called Shemi. And they put their idea together and they go to Shark Tank.
Well, let me add this.
Right.
She proved in her efforts with Shark Tank and with crowdfunding that truly the crowd is smarter than the experts.
Very well said. Maybe in Who Wants to Be a Millionaire, when you ask the expert, you get some good answer, but when you go to the audience is 75% more accurate. But take a look at this. In crowdfunding, if the crowd or the customer say yes to you, that means you have proof of concept. Now, I want to emphasize on this, and I want to go ahead through this. They go to the Shark Tank, and they go in front of this very, very intelligent group of investors that everybody knows who they are. And they basically listen to her, and they force her to really say some of the things that you might not even say in any type of presentation, such as, yes, she had a bankruptcy, but guess what? In any business, any businessman, you go to a school of hard knocks, and sometimes you have to go to bankruptcy, but that doesn't mean that you didn't learn. Anyway, the result is that they fail her and they don't give her the money. Guess what? She comes back and she goes to crowdfunding. She says, When the expert, they are not listening, and remember, our experiences make us a coward. Maybe some of these experts, they didn't want to try this thing because they're scared of it. But guess what? She is really a go-getter, and she goes to so-called Kickstarter, get engaged with the project to raise the seed money. In this case, would be somewhere about 20 some odd thousand dollars, $29,000. As of today, she passed 31,000, and I'm very sure she will do more of this thing. Therefore, what we learned is very simple. Crowd or customer intelligence is higher than an expert, and we need to remember something that is written in gold. Customer is always right. Correct? Therefore, congratulations to her. We would love to have her in our so-called show. We want to promote her. She's in Los Angeles, and if she sees this show, we are looking forward to hear from your success and as you go forward. And I highly recommend all of us to watch the so-called YouTube regarding the Shark Tank and her, Shemi, and see what happens if you go in front of the expert and what type of question they ask. But guess what? We don't need it anymore. We can go in front of the crowd and raise the money. All this information is in our portal, and you guys can refer to it.
So for details on any of the subjects, the campaigns, and the items of information that may be of interest to you, please don't hesitate to take a look at our website, which is crowdfundingplanning.com. In the blog section, you can also go through an archive of our broadcasts. You can reach some of our mentors, as Brian is part of that ecosystem with us. And remember, our motto that we suggest all of you go forward with now is go forward with a crowdfunding effort with passion, with a plan, and leverage your power. See you next time. Have a very good weekend.
Thank you again for joining us.